an elevator for any reason. Because of the claustrophobia, my world got smaller and smaller and smaller. And I used to force my daughter to go with me everywhere because I couldn't go to the ladies' room by myself because I couldn't close the door. That's how claustrophobic I was. And so she would stand at the door and hold the door for me because I couldn't lock it. And anything I had to do, either I didn't go or I dragged her along or somebody else to watch the doors, okay? So anyhow, it was 2 years ago because, and I remember the day so well because it was 2 years ago that Michelle's dad died. And we were gonna be flying to Florida to see him before he passed away and all of that. Well, about a week before that, I was sitting watching TV, and I like to always watch CBN. I like to watch Christian broadcasting network. Thank you, network. And I just like to watch because they have such good stories on it, you know, about a lot of different things. So anyway, I was sitting there on the couch and I was watching it, and at the end of their program, they always have a segment where they will pray for people, and many times they will say someone is being healed for something, and then they'll say in the name of Jesus, be healed. Well, anyhow, Pat Robinson was on it that day, and I like to listen to him, you know, and so he said there's somebody out there that is dealing with fear, and I want you to know right now that you're being healed of that fear. And I sat there and I thought, gee, that would be nice, you know. Never in a million years thinking anything more than that at all. I mean, it was just, oh, that would be nice not to have fear. So anyway, I'm still watching it, and so I was there with get that for a second, get it off. Can't come up front, girl. I was sitting there and not thinking anything about it because a lot of the things they were talking about was really interesting. So then a little bit into the program, Pat Robinson comes back out and he says, I have one more thing to say about fear. And he kind of leaned into the camera, you know how he does. He leans into the camera, he says, I got one more thing to say about fear. And he says, there's someone out there that has fear, and in the name of Jesus, you're healed. You are healed. And I'm sitting there going, gosh, that would be good. You know, it would be nice. That was it. That was the end of it. Program went off. I didn't think about it. That was it. So it was like a couple days later, I was doing something in the house, and Michelle had called. And I said to Michelle, you know something? I don't feel so anxious. I just don't feel that anxiety like I always have, you know, that, oh my God, I gotta watch where I go, I gotta watch what I do, I gotta watch what you know, all that stuff. And I said, I just don't feel it. And she goes, oh, that's good, Mom, you know, that's the way we looked at it. So anyhow, we had to get ready to go to the airport, which was in a couple days after that. So as I'm packing and getting ready, because everything's hurry, because he was critical and he was passing, and we wanted to get there before he passed away. So I just threw stuff in a bag, and a couple of times I noticed I don't feel so anxious, and usually getting ready to go on the airplane, it meant that I was immediately popping Xanax pills in my mouth. Before I even got near them, just popping these Xanax, right? Because the anxiety was like, oh, yeah, I gotta get on a plane. So anyhow, we go, and I didn't think anything of it. We get to the airport, I'm sitting, waiting for the plane to come. And I'm sitting there, and I said, Michelle, I am not at all anxious. And I said, and I haven't taken any Xanax at all. I said, do you think that maybe I got healed? Do you think that? And she says, well, the proof's in the pudding, Mom. She says, you'll know when you get out of that plane if you start screaming and yelling, get me off here. So I said, okay. So anyhow, Fast forward, plane comes, we get up, go on it. I'm walking down that hallway, and let me tell you, those little hallways you go to the plane.
Yeah.
I used to be going, going in there, and Michelle going, it's all right, Mom, take a Xanax, it's all right. And I just walked down there. I sat in the plane. I'm looking around. I said, "Oh my gosh, I am healed. I am healed. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus." And I said, "Thank you, Jesus." And the people on the airport are looking at me like, "What the heck is wrong with her?" You know? Fly in, I'm fine. So we get to the hospital, okay? And Joe's on the 5th floor. And we walk up, Michelle says, "Okay, what are we gonna do?" Because usually I'll take the stairs. I don't care if it's 15 floors. I go those stairs. I do not get in an elevator. Haven't been in one in years and years. And I'm standing there looking at that elevator, and I'm thinking, I can do this. The elevator opened. There were some people on it. I walked in. I turned around. The door's closed. I'm yelling, "Thank you, Jesus! Thank you, Jesus! Thank you." These people are looking at me like, this woman has lost her mind. I said, "You don't understand." Michelle's going, "You don't understand. Let me explain it to you. She's okay. She's been claustrophobic, and now she's not afraid. Thank you, Jesus." Up 5 floors, all the way down again. I went up and down, up and down. Okay, so there's my story about claustrophobia. Well, now here's the other part. So this past week, Michelle had to go to UC Davis to see her neurologist, and no, not a neurologist. It was for thyroid disease. Okay, so we're going in, and we walk in, and we were trying to find a parking place. First of all, couldn't find one, and we were late about 20 minutes. We finally got in there. We went in. We got on the elevator. Michelle pushed the button, and up we go 2 floors. I was fine. I got off. And then I said to Michelle, while she was waiting for the doctor, I said, "I better go down there," because I parked on the street, "and put more money in that, because a ticket's going to cost a whole lot more than that." So she says, "Okay." So I go, walk out by myself, go to the elevator, and I had never been on an elevator by myself in years and years and years and years. Okay? You have to remember, I was raised in the 50s in a little town. We didn't have any elevators. We didn't go in elevators at all. So I go to the door of the elevator, and I'm standing there waiting for the elevator. I pushed it to go down, and I'm waiting there, and I'm reading the sign. If electricity goes off, the elevators will not work. If there's a fire, do not get on the elevator, take the stairs. And I'm reading this, and I thought, this should have scared the crap out of me already. Right there, that much right there. The door opened, I walked in. I turned around, I looked at the buttons. I didn't have a clue what to push. Not a clue. I'm standing there looking at it, and I went, "What the heck is all this?"
Oh no.
I said, "What is it? I don't know what to push." And I'm standing there, and the door's closed. So I haven't pushed anything. Door's closed. And I went, "Where am I going?" So I look up, and I'm watching. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it stopped. And it opened up. So I'm smart enough, I got out of the elevator, and I'm standing there, and I thought, I don't know what those buttons mean. You know, the only 2 times I was ever in an elevator, it was up and down. That's it. Nothing else. Up and down. So I'm standing there, and all of a sudden the elevator comes back down, and this woman's in it, and she walks out, and I went, "Excuse me, ma'am, could you help me?" And she goes, "Sure. What's the problem?" Now, I should have been totally embarrassed, but I was not. I was proud that I got on the stupid thing in the first place, okay?
Right.
So I am standing, I said, I've had claustrophobia for years and years and years, and I haven't been on an elevator, and my daughter's usually with me, and she pushes the buttons. She knows what to do. I don't have a clue, and I need to go down to the ground floor, and I don't know what to push. Well, she starts giggling a little. I said, this is real, seriously real. So she says, come on, I'll show you. She gets out with me, and she says, I can understand why this is confusing to you. So she says, this one is garage, this one is low, this one is 2, 3, and 4. And if you have a problem, you can push this button to open the door, and push this button to close the door. And I'm going, oh my word. Okay? She goes, come on, I'll ride with you. Where do you want to go? I says, ground floor. She rode with me, and on there I'm saying, see, I had claustrophobia, but I was healed by Jesus. And that's why I don't understand all this stuff, because I never played it. I never was, with it to go on an elevator. And she says, my husband has claustrophobia, and my mother-in-law really has it. I'm going to have to tell them Jesus healed you. I said, yes, thank you. I got off. I did the parking lot. And then I came back, I got on that elevator by myself, I went up to the second floor, I was so excited, I could hardly talk. I now can say, I can get out of the elevator and I really would know, kind of, sort of, where to go. I did it. But that whole situation made me think of one thing. And here we go.
No.
Here we go. Here. It's amazing what we don't know. And we'll never know what we don't know until we start doing what we thought we knew how to do, or what we avoided, or what we were afraid of, and then we start understanding and learning about it. Correct?
Yeah.
Now talk to me, everybody. I want comments and voices. I never knew that the elevators had changed over the years. I had absolutely no idea that the elevators had changed.
You used to have people in there operating them for you.
Yeah,
Lot of-
true.
Years ago.
Well, I wasn't in them then either, so. But I didn't know that the elevators had changed. Nor did I know how they changed, because they had all these buttons, but I didn't know what those buttons meant. So it wasn't because I didn't want to know. The first thing that kept me from knowing was absolute terror. I was in terror because I had claustrophobia. But then when that was gone, and I looked at them, it wasn't that I didn't want to know, it was that I had no education, I had no knowledge of what buttons to push to do what. I had no idea how that works at all. So it hit me as we're driving home from Sacramento, is I said to my daughter, I am just amazed what I don't know at my age. Amazed. Absolutely amazed. And it brought to light all the things that I teach here in this class. So many times I tell everyone or teach everyone about medications. I teach about, dysfunctional behavior. I teach about what you should do, not do, what the different illnesses are, what the symptoms are. And I teach it. But so many people that come in, for the first time, they don't, it's like foreign to them, because they don't know that all of this is there for them until someone starts showing them. Correct? So how would that affect their life? Speak to me.
Changes it dramatically. It can just change dramatically.
It would change dramatically. In what way?
Well, it just creates confidence, and it also gives you power, where it gives you that knowledge of what to do first.
Exactly. What else?
It would open you up to worlds you probably could never imagine.
It would just open up your whole life. Okay? I mean, every one of us in this class came here the first time. Everyone has a first time,
Right.
including me. We all have a first time. The first time coming into this class, it was foreign and it was frightening, correct? Because you didn't know what to expect. You didn't know, who is this Marcia that teaches this class? And you're wondering, how does she know anything? And then when they came to class and I stood up here and I said in the beginning, and I said, I really don't know anything about mental health. I am sure that they had a lot of confidence at that point and said, what the heck am I doing here? Okay? But it was the truth. I didn't. And together we learned. Together we grew. Together we became one. Together lives start changing.
Well, you had learned how to elevate them.
Yes. Yes, I did. But the thing is, just like when I was claustrophobic, my daughter guided me through life. She walked with me and guided me through life, is what she did. And even when we were going to places and different things, it was her confidence and her not being afraid that got me to follow her. Okay? She had my confidence that I could follow her. I trusted her that when I went into a ladies' room, that she would be right there by that door and make sure no one would come in and make sure that that door didn't close. I trusted her completely. And all the things that we have to face in life, the things that are happening in our lives, especially with mental health situations in your family and in your own life, there has to be some place and someone that you have absolute trust in. That you're able to say, I know that I can count on that person. I know that they will be there for me. Not to do it for me, but to help me through the scary times and the dark places. And the times I'm not sure, or I'm just learning, or I'm trying to do better, but I stumble on occasion. It's vital. It's vital to have those things. But let's look at a couple things that maybe you just don't know. Name one. I told you my whole life story. Come on, you can name one. Something you don't know.
Well, going to, say, Sacramento and all the different things they have there, I have no idea how to use the rail system. And I have friends that know, but I don't want to admit to them that I don't know how to do that. So I tend to just kind of like pass it off and kind of hope that I'd love to go, but maybe someone will say, hey, let's go. Then I'll go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But that's something is kind of daring, risk-taking.
Risk-taking. How many people have ever been in New York City? A lot of people. When you first went, what was the first thing you felt?
Very, very high anxiety, and I had a panic attack on that bus. It is cut in half, and I'm sitting in there, and the humidity, and I had the worst panic attack ever. I was screaming, get me off the bus, and my daughter was like, what's wrong with you? It was, I couldn't handle it.
I thought, why are there like people like cattle walking across the street?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was 13 years old and it was a history trip. $800. We went to New York and Maryland and all the historical areas. And New York, we were in a taxi, and I'll tell you, I didn't know how to pray at that time, believe me. You know, you're going so fast, and there's such fear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then tall buildings, and you feel like you feel like you might as well be on the moon.
Exactly.
You're so far away.
Exactly. New York City.
Yeah.
New York City. My father's side of the family were all from the city. All from New York City. And every year we used to go to the city. And whenever we drove into the city, before we get to one of my aunt's houses or place or their apartments, my father would immediately take a right turn and go to this bakery shop where all the pastries were. And he would buy just huge amounts of pastry, the best pastry you've ever tasted in your life. And we would take them to one of our relatives' house and spend the weekend there. It was like going into a whole other country,
Yeah.
is what it felt like, in a completely other country. How many people have ever been to another country where the language was different?
Yeah. And going along your elevator thing, so we went to Germany. We were at this museum, and my brother's claustrophobic of elevators. So my son and my husband and him, they took the stairs, and I get in there. I'm like, oh, I don't have no problem with elevators. I used to ride up and down just for fun. I get in there, and the doors close, and then I realized I don't read German. And I didn't know which to push, and it wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
It was just closed, and I didn't know how to get it open. And I'm thinking, I can understand your panic, because for the first time in my entire life, I didn't know how to read it, and it was very scary.
It's scary. It's scary because you didn't know before you got in the elevator in Germany
I should have known
that. Well, why? You're not used to it. That the buttons are going to be in German. How would you know that? I mean, it would be, someone could say, well, it's common sense, isn't it? No, you can go to a lot of countries and they have English and German and French and all these other languages to help you through it.
And
right?
there's these things we just take naturally. You don't stop and think about those kind of things, because getting on an elevator has never been an issue,
Yeah.
Never thought about it. You walk in, you push button.
Yeah, exactly.
It can be different,
It can
just
be
because
very
it was in a different country.
It can be very different.
I've been in the ladies to use the toilet and not being able to get out. And that is, after a while, when there's nobody in there and you cannot get out, I mean, you start to panic. And then I went underneath. To get out. Well, I was young enough, where I was able to do that, go underneath. But I could not get that door open.
Yeah.
I mean, just the thought of it.
Absolutely.
That's happened to me before too. I was in the bathroom and the door wouldn't open, and I started panicking. I was like, excuse me. I'm like banging on the door, like, somebody help me, please. I'm like, somebody please help me get out of here, And then like finally somebody came over and was like, oh, are you stuck in there? I'm like, yes.
Exactly.
Get me out right now.
Yeah. It's frightening. You don't know
terrible.
how.
It's
You don't
terrible.
know how.
I was in a mental hospital one time, and my daughter came to visit me for a very short time, for about 10 minutes, and she brought me some clothes, and she had been in a mental hospital herself. And she said, Mom, whatever you do, don't run down the hall and try to get out that door.
Yeah, you know how they're
And she had already tried that.
No escaping.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Right.
When I was in Japan during the Vietnam War, we stopped in Japan, right? Well, in southern Japan, the people are about this tall.
Mhm.
Over here, the doorways are 6'8".
Yeah.
Over there, they're 6 foot.
Yeah.
And all my buddies would yell, duck! Plus, they had no men and women.
No.
When you went in, there were women in the bathroom, look around, they're all laughing at you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
I was gonna tell the exact same story. In the 50s, I went to Japan and no warning of any kind. And at the train stations, public restrooms, well, men and women use the same restroom.
Mhm.
And they call them Benjis, but they're like urinals.
Uh-huh.
And so I go in and I use the urinal. This lady came right in beside me and she picked up her skirt. She did her doing it. I didn't know where to look. I had no idea where to look.
Wow.
And she was done and she left and I thought, well, I didn't roll, I guess.
Wow, goodness.
Same way.
Yeah, exactly.
Europe.
When I married Joe and he was in the military and he had come home, his time was up and he said, what do you want to do? Would you like to get on the military or do you want to sign up and where would you like to go? And I said, let's go to Italy. So he said, well, we'll put that down, but we've got to have 3 places in case they won't let us go. Well, they sent us to Italy. And I got to Italy, and I'm Italian and raised in an Italian family, and everybody in my family pretty much spoke Italian, except for myself, my sister, and brother, because my mother said, you live in America, you speak English. And so she wouldn't let us really speak a lot of Italian. But we always picked up enough to be able to say certain things and understand what they were saying when they're talking in the room and doesn't want us to understand. So anyhow, so I go to Italy, and the other thing is that my grandmother on my dad's side is French, but was raised in Italy, so she spoke French Italian.
Oh,
And then the rest of my family was Sicilian, which has another dialect. So the words that I knew in Italy when I was there and I'm trying to talk to people was one of these dialects that no one understood. And they look at me like, you know, what are you saying and why? And all of my Italian meant nothing other than ciao. I could say ciao, and they knew what that meant, but everything else was lost. And before I got to Italy, I would have thought I would be able to speak enough to be able to get by. Well, nothing that I knew because it was all dialect.
Right.
Sicilian is totally different dialect, and my grandmother's Italian was mixed with French, you know, so there was just, it was bizarre. It was just bizarre. But that was another area that I did not know until I got there, and I was shocked. I was shocked that people did not understand when I said words in Italian. And the one thing I started doing is learning true Roman Italian there. And so the first thing I learned was "Che ora sono per favore," which means "what time is it, please?" I learned that. But all the other words, and today, in this day, I couldn't speak Italian if my life depended on it because there's nobody to talk to, you know, and you just lose it. You lose it all. But the point here is, and I know you're getting this, is that there's areas in your life when you are convinced you understand it. There's areas in your life that you are convinced you know. And there's areas in your life that you think you know more than the other person knows. And what will happen in that thinking is you will come to a place in your own personal little elevator and find out there's so much I don't know. So much I don't know. And that's why these classes are so important. That week after week after week after week, the teaching of the things that I learn, you know, reading and researching and different things that I learned that I pass on to everyone and pass on, and you learn a little bit different. You look at yourself and you say, oh, that's why I feel like that. Or when we teach about the dysfunctional behaviors, all of a sudden you're looking at the things in your own life that are dysfunctional behaviors and how it's affecting your life. and all of a sudden that light bulb goes on in that area. In that area, that light bulb will go off. But then the next week, maybe you'll come and something will be said in a class, and all of a sudden you'll go, gosh, I never realized that's the way I felt. And the light bulb goes on again. The reason that I told the stories, and I told you about all my dilemmas here, is because none of us, not one of us, knows everything. And there isn't any of us that knows everything about yourself. You think that you would be the one that knows it all about you, and we probably know a quarter of who we are, how we think, what we feel, what we want, where we're going, and how we're going to address the rest of our lives. And that's why coming to these classes are vital, and to be consistent, and to learn, and to learn, and to learn, and open up. Questions? Comments? Talk to me. Now.
I'm thinking about your reading your book and your beginning, how much of that limited your personal desire to experience new things. And, you know, you're not as uncommon as somebody might think. I think a large segment of our society just lives within their own world, and you don't know that. You're walking beside them, you're sitting beside them in a restaurant, and I think back in my parents' days, my parents back in the 20s and 30s, they would never think of leaving their hometown. They would never think about getting on a plane and fly to Florida. That was the big mecca in Massachusetts.
Right.
They would never think of that. They would drive, but for them to get on a plane, no. People seem to be born, they might go away, military, job-wise, and then come back and die. There's something about, I don't know, people, the society we live in, we're not conditioned to reach out there, experience, experiment. That's not safe for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it takes a certain, like in your case, a certain situation that all of a sudden takes the blinders off, and there's a whole new world out there.
There's a whole world I never knew. A whole world I never knew. I was at the Marshall doctor's office, where it's doctors in this building anyway. And anyhow, I said Michelle was with the doctor, and so I wanted to go to the ladies' room, right? So I went over to find the lady. I asked where it was, and I went over to find the ladies' room, and I looked at this door, and I'm not exaggerating at all. The door was probably 10 foot tall. Maybe I am exaggerating a little. 10 foot tall, this wide, and it looked like it was made of steel. And I'm looking at it, and it had a handle on it, okay? And I'm looking at it, and I'm standing there, because remember, the memory of claustrophobia, I remember what it was like. And so I'm looking at it, and I went, let's do it. So I opened that door. This huge, I mean, it's wide. Where they got this door, I'll never know. I'm exaggerating, it wasn't quite this wide, but it was huge to me, okay? I opened that door, pulled it way over, and here's this bathroom. It's just for one person, okay? Bathroom, right? So I can't hold the door and go to the bathroom. It's an impossibility, okay? And I said, I didn't feel the anxiety, and I went like this, okay, and that door went crash behind me. Like a jailhouse. I swear, like they closed the jail door, and I'm standing there, and I'm waiting for panic, because I have the memory of how I used to feel. I'm standing there and I'm waiting, and I thought, I don't feel anything. I'm calm. I don't feel, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Right? Did my stuff, washed my hands, went to that door, hit that thing, and pushed on it, and it opened up, and I'm going down the aisle. I did it! I did it! I did it! All by myself. I did it all by myself. These things, now these are funny stories, and they're meant to be funny stories. But you have to understand, once I was blind, once I was controlled by fear, once I was ignorant of what life had to offer me, because so many doors were shut tight, because I didn't know what was out there, because I was so gripped by fear of being closed in. And that's a whole other story why I had such terrible claustrophobia. But I was told most of my life, because I didn't do things the way everybody else did, that I was gonna die and go straight to hell. Straight to hell. So my whole logic was, if I don't put myself in any kind of a situation where I might die, then I don't have to worry about hell. Okay? But that was the fear that held me hostage. And my entire world became smaller and smaller and smaller until I realized that I am free. I am free. And I am able to do so much more. And will do so much more. Go.
Is there something applicable here to folks who are taking medications and maybe having negative experiences with them, and all of a sudden they find out that their therapist all of a sudden is going to change their medication? Is there possibly that fear of, I had a bad experience and I don't want to have another bad experience, so therefore I will not, I don't want to take another type of medication?
Absolutely.
Is that applicable?
Absolutely. And it's with any medication. I mean, mental health is prominent, of course, absolutely. I mean, and most people that are on medication and they're kind of working well, you know, and then your doctor says, well, I really think we need to change this or change the dose or something. There's fear that sets in because you don't want to go an episode. You don't want all of a sudden change the medication and go into episode. It's understandable. But there's ways about being educated about that where you can do it very slowly that it will not affect you. But even when people that have illnesses, not mental health issues, but illnesses, and they put you on medications, you have a natural fear of that medication. But you understand that you have to try it to see if it'll work for you. Absolutely. It's common. But we have to focus on or look at in your life, what are the things you avoid or say, no, I'm not going to do it. And you don't know what you don't know. If you avoid it or even try or even step out, all of a sudden you're going to at least be looking at the buttons. Even if you don't push them, at least you're going to look at the buttons. And that's the first step. And then if you push one, and it actually works, it goes up when it's supposed to or down when it's supposed to, you think, it's okay. Now I know this. Now I understand this.
Just like what you're talking about just makes me think of like how lucky we are to live in America, where it's a free country where you can do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because in a lot of countries you can't do stuff.
Right.
And it's really nice to be able to go for a drive spur of the moment, or you know, take an airplane over here. You know, you can afford it to go over there and visit whoever and see a whole nother world, and you know.
Absolutely. With all of the problems in America, and America has problems. I don't know a country that doesn't have problems. I don't know a person that doesn't have problems. Then you put us all together, then we got problems, okay? And yet, we are totally blessed. Totally blessed. When I went to Italy, the one thing that I missed the most was water pressure. There was no water pressure. You couldn't take a shower. It was drip, drip,
Oh, my.
drip, drip. Couldn't wash clothes. It was awful. No water pressure. And the little things that I took for granted in America was not there. And it was like, what do you mean you don't have this? Well, how do you wash your clothes? Well, how do you take a shower? And they're telling me how I to do that to be able to handle it. Living there, I was there 2.5 years. And it was like, it was just bizarre. It was bizarre to me. And when I came back home to America, I got on my hands and knees and kissed the ground and said, I will never leave you again. Never. I mean, the simple things, you know, pick up the phone. There was no phone. This was in 1966, okay? They had no phones. You know, we lived in a villa. It was beautiful. On the ocean. Beautiful. That was our yard. The ocean. Beautiful. $80 a month.
Oh.
Nice.
Wonderful. Wonderful. We lived with rich people. There was dentists and doctors, and it was a gated community. It was wonderful. They had no phones. You couldn't call anybody. You couldn't call police if you needed them. There was nobody to call. There was no water pressure. You know, it was just bizarre. It was bizarre to me. But I learned in Italy, back then, they were way behind us. Way behind us. And it was just amazing to me because in my mind, because I was young, I was only 21, in my mind, I thought America was everywhere. It was all the same. I thought it was all the same. And it wasn't.
I went to Italy after going to Turkey for 3 weeks, and I became very ill, got ill in Turkey and then went to Italy, and I ended up in the hospital in Italy,
Oh, wow.
and I couldn't speak any any Italian, and it was really scary
Yes.
being over there. But they have socialized medicine. Didn't know it when my dad and my sister dropped me off. They had no gowns, they had no toilet paper, they had no soap. You had to take all your own stuff, but we didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So they left me there, and I was very violently sick. I mean, sick.
Mm-hmm.
And I had nothing to change into, and it was a scary thing.
Frightening.
Wow.
Frightening.
Yeah.
What
it was-
you don't
Wow.
What you don't know.
Put in the ring.
What you don't know.
Mm.
It's in all of our life. It's in every part of our life. And when you bring it back home to just this class, if you bring it back here to what we deal with the mental health issues and the families that are crying out and saying, what do I do? And the husbands and the wives and the children, the young children now that are showing signs of mental health issues, and people don't want to label them, so they won't diagnose them, so they won't give them medications. It's just everything is different, but these things in our society of mental health issues, it's life and death many times. Life and death. It's a matter of whether you live a good, healthy life or you live a life that is struggling and painful all the time. And thank God, in our class here, the majority of people that attend have achieved balance, have maintained it for years, and are doing well. But they're here all the time, and they are learning how to manage their own life. Not just with the mental health part of it, but to manage their life with their dysfunctions and the things that are affecting their lives. And it is important, it is vital, And that's why I do these tapes. This is why I do the teachings on YouTube. This is why we're getting the word out amongst, all across the world on YouTube. It reaches everywhere, so it's really important. Go ahead. Deb.
I have an example. My first experience of going into a mental hospital lockdown was probably one of the scariest things I ever experienced, because I didn't know even what a mental illness was. And so I can relate this conversation to that. And now that if I were to go there again, my daughter-in-law who has bipolar 1, I think I'd be anxious, but I don't think I won't be scared because of the education and because of what I know what to expect and I know what's going on.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's the key of being educated. Takes the fear away. When you know what's happening, when you understand it, it takes the fear away. And it makes it totally different.
Sometimes you have to experience something before you become less fearful.
Absolutely.
Like Debbie said, she